In this lecture, we're talking about some important C# formatting principles, just to give you a bit more of an understanding of what we're doing in our code. Let's hop into our mover script. The first thing I want to point out is comments. You might know about comments and seen them before. Basically, these are ways for us to write notes that the engine or the code is going to ignore. Unity has put a note in here about what start is and about what update is. That's a comment. I could make my own comment. So // is the convention. And then anything we write after this, anything we write, if I can spell, is a comment. The engine will ignore that completely. So I'm going to delete that. I'm also going to delete my start comment just to tidy up my space a bit here so I can fit everything on my screen I want to show you. I'll remove the update, just highlight that, delete, delete, delete. Cool. So now I don't have any comments. The reason you would add comments is you can make notes to yourself. That's the main reason. You can give some explanation for things that maybe in 6 months' time you might look at and say, what on earth was I trying to do here? Now, a lot of people will say you should never use comments because your code should be so perfect that you don't need comments and everything's named amazingly and it's so easily readable. But hey, if you're starting off and you're a beginner, you might not be perfect just yet. So it's okay to write comments in there. It's like, hey, this is where I was trying to do whatever it is you were trying to do. I think that's not a bad thing to do while you're getting up and running. The next thing I want to talk about is white space. So white space in C# in Unity doesn't matter. So we've got our variables that we typed in before, serialized field. I could have a whole bunch of spaces and then spaces here and spaces there. That wouldn't be a problem. The computer is going to know exactly what to do with that. Now, if I went and put a space in between a word, flow at, it doesn't know what a flow at is because we've gone and broken that word. So it needs words to be formatted properly, but spaces, we've got a lot of flexibility. If you have things butted up against each other, now it thinks it's a floaty value. It doesn't know what that is. So it's a float and value, they're separate things. Feel free to play around with this, put spaces in, see when you get the red squiggly lines, because that means you've broken something, red squiggly lines, and if you don't get the red squiggly lines, so, oh, I guess that's fine. Now, another thing about formatting is different people like to have things laid out differently. I like to have my curly braces, which is basically saying, here's a method, and then here's the code that we do within it, as we've got with update down here. I like to have my curly braces in a line like that. Some people will do it like this. So you have your starting curly brace up at the right after your name of your method, and it works exactly the same way. But some people will get really precious about that and say, oh, this is wrong, you're supposed to do it like this, or vice versa. So what you want to do is understand what things you're allowed to change and what things you should try to keep consistent, because if you're going off to get a job and you've written your code like that, technically it will work, but people will look at it and say, why didn't you indent it? Because everyone indents it because it makes it read better. We tend to indent whenever we go into a new code block. So for example, if I had another code block in here like that, and if I had another code block within here, it's indented again. So we tend to indent each time we have code blocks within code blocks. Let me just undo all that stuff. What have I done here? There we go. And speaking of curly braces, I'm going to get my drawing tool here. You can see within update, the method we've got open curly brace and close curly brace. And within that, we've got our one statement. We might have a second statement, a third statement, a fourth statement, and so on, that's within our curly braces. And that is saying, when we call update, do all these things that happen between these two curly braces. When we get to the end, so when we get to our second curly brace, then stop doing it. Go on to the next particular part of our code. That's what we see with start. Start, okay, open and close. There might be a statement in here where we need to do something. And then when it's done, when we get to this second curly brace, it's like, cool, now I'm done with start. There's nothing more to be done with start here. You can see the other set of curly braces we've got are at the very top and at the very bottom. And these relate to our class, which is called mover. So we've got a class, and that class is called mover, and that's basically all of the stuff we're doing in our script belongs to this mover class. That's important because when we're in other classes, or in other words, other scripts that we've made, it might be shooter as a script that we've made, or it might be explosion as a script that we've made. They'll be their very own classes, and those classes have things that they do and things that they don't do. So we'll get into classes a little bit more later on, but I just wanted to highlight that class is another area where we've got these curly braces, so that's why the class knows about all these things that's happening in here. So why does that matter about curly braces? Well, if we put something into start, and it's between that curly brace and that curly brace, then there's a very good chance that update doesn't know about it because it's contained within these curly braces. So likewise, if something is not in between these update curly braces, it might not know about it. The great example here is we've got our variables we've got X, Y, and Z variables with a number that we've assigned to them, or we've modified it in the inspector, but it's the same thing. We've got these numbers. When update first starts doing its thing, it's just going to grab those values and put them straight in within here. However, with this current setup, update doesn't know about any changes we make to the X and the Y and the Z. And that's a problem because when we get out our controller, that's a controller, buttons. When we get our controller and we hit to the left or we hit to the right, we need update to know about it because we want to change how we move our character. And so that's a little bit of an introduction to the fact that we need to pay attention to the fact that some things know about some things. And if we need to be updating our movement, this is what we're currently doing with Translate. If we need to update our movement, then we need to be mindful of the fact that, well, update doesn't know about changes. And that's what we're going to be doing in the next lecture. We're going to be setting it up so that update does know about any changes we're making to whether we're supposed to move right or left, and we'll set up our basic player movement. So this has just been a quick introduction into C# formatting to give you a little bit of extra intel, and we'll put some of these things into practice in the next lecture. Okay, see you then.